Hey, what is up, internet friends? Carter here. Have a philosophical type video for you. Well, not really philosophical, more like discussionary video. I want to talk about kind of just using this example, some differences between custom knives and production knives. So on the right here I have my custom Mini LPC from Sniper Bladeworks, and on the right I have my Boker S2 collaboration with Sniper Bladeworks. So this is roughly a $50–$60 knife. This is roughly a $500–$550 knife. Now let's see, I'm kind of just doing this off the fly, so bear with me if I'm a little helter-skelter with it, but I just think it would be really cool to talk about these two things. Now, obviously, Boker approached the designers, Lance and Jody, to come up with a production version of one of their folders. I do believe there is a custom version of this that's a lot more similar than this one is, but they share a lot of the same features. They kind of have this radical, large-bladed, wide-bladed design going on, as well as the G10 backspacer, kind of half enclosed and things like that. So there are a lot of design features that are similar between the two. Here, obviously, you know, materials. Okay, let's talk materials. You've got G10, G10, titanium, G10, stainless steel liners. So, you know, titanium, it costs more and it's harder to machine. It takes more work and stuff like that. Differentially treated high carbon steel. This is just regular plain old 440C, I believe. Yeah, 440C. Definitely cheaper steel, easier to work with, easier to get. Now, one of the things I want to point out here, why Chinese-made knives and such tend to be cheaper is because they stamp everything. They use a big stamping machine, so they have a pattern and they take a big sheet of steel and they have a big hydraulic thing and stamps it. Because of this process, it prevents them from being able to do certain things and deal with certain materials, which is one of the reasons why they can't do S30V. Their stamping process can't handle, it's too tough. They also can't handle steel stock that is too thick, because the stamp can't handle that. And that's kind of a theme with production knives in general, and of course the extreme version of that is, you know, Chinese, Taiwan knives. Is you could look at this knife and say, wow, you know, 50–60 bucks compared to the huge amount of this. They're both cool knives. Why would I pay the extra? And, you know, for a lot of people that's correct, and that's fine, and they'll go through their life and they'll do that, and that's fine. But one of the things you start to notice after you get into knives for a long time is you start to see kind of the limitations of cheaper processes come out. You start to notice how corners are cut to bring a custom to production, as well as the limitations in materials, the limitations in how those materials are finished, and you know, things just start looking the same. You know, everything just looks the same because they're so limited, and they can only produce a knife this cheap by following certain regimens and cutting certain corners. And after you've been into knives for a while, you really start to pick up on that. So that's definitely something that drove me kind of into the custom world. Another thing is you have to appeal to a large audience to sell something like this, because you have to move a lot of units. In order to sell it at that price, you have to sell a lot of them. So you try to appeal to everybody, and so you start seeing things like only black G10, and you know, the design doesn't get too crazy, and you know, nobody really takes a risk because they've got to move these units in order to sell it. With a custom, none of those rules apply because they're done essentially one at a time. If somebody wants this to be anodized blue with purple spikes on it, they can do it. You know, I mean, I don't know if Sniper Bladeworks would actually do it because it does reflect on their name, but you know, that's an extreme example. But you know what I mean? You can take risks like that. You can take design risks, you can take function risks and things like that, because you're not dependent on selling thousands upon thousands of these in order to make ends meet. You're selling them one at a time, you know, and the work that goes into it, the handwork that goes into it, is the same essentially for every model, aside from additional embellishments and things like that. Anyways, so like I mentioned, all over the place in this video. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know, maybe I won't even put this up. I really should outline kind of what I want to say, but I had this out when I was doing my show and tell with it, and I was going to do a section where I mentioned this one, but I forgot to, so then I was going to add it and thought that I would do a video on the differences between the two. Now, I could go into the details on the work, you know, how all this is beveled and all that kind of stuff. This isn't the best example. This is a pretty basic type custom. There's not a lot of embellishment or frills or features or anything on here. But it definitely does show that this is, you know, a handmade knife. It's handcrafted. All of this is done by a person in a small shop. It's not, you know, just a stamped out piece of steel that then goes to the sharpening area, and then it goes to the tumbled area, and then they stamp out or cut the G10, stamp out the liners, then it goes to assembly. You know, there's just something to be said about a knife that's made by hand, and I think it's pretty cool. And I'm done here. I'm just rambling. Later.